Hello everyone, I, Dr. Rubal Barar, Assistant Professor, Department of English, Cultural Studies and Foreign Languages at GSS DGS Khalsa College Patiala, Punjab, India, will be today engaging you in the understanding of the Holocaust. This is part 2 of the lecture on the Holocaust. In the earlier lecture, we had discussed the Nazi regime's segregation of the Jews from the non-Jewish population of Europe by means of forceful incarceration of the Jews in the unhygienic ghettos. The largest ghetto in Poland was the Warsaw Ghetto. In Warsaw, more than 4 lakh Jews were crowded into an area of 1.3 square miles. Tens of thousands of Western European Jews were also deported to ghettos in the east. This image is of an emaciated child eating in the streets of the Warsaw Ghetto, Poland, between 1940 and 1943. Between 1933 and 1945, Nazi Germany and its allies established more than 44,000 camps and other incarceration sites, including ghettos. The perpetrators used these sites for a range of purposes, including forced labor, detention of people who were thought to be enemies of the state, and for their mass murder. With the implementation of the final solution, that is, the plan to murder all European Jews, beginning in late 1941, the Germans systematically destroyed the ghettos. The Germans and their auxiliaries either shot ghetto residents in mass graves located nearby or deported them. Jews were deported to killing centers. The German SS, that is, the elite guard of the Nazi state, and police authorities also deported a small minority of Jews from ghettos to forced labor camps and concentration camps. The term final solution of the Jewish question was a euphemism used by Nazi Germany's leaders. It referred to the mass murder of Europe's Jews. It brought an end to policies aimed at encouraging or forcing Jews to leave the German Reich and other parts of Europe. Those policies were replaced by systematic annihilation. The Nazis frequently used euphemistic language to disguise the true nature of their crimes. They used the term final solution to refer to their plan to annihilate the Jewish people. It is not known when the leaders of Nazi Germany definitively decided to implement the final solution. The genocide or mass destruction of the Jews was the culmination of a decade of increasingly severe discriminatory measures. Under the rule of Adolf Hitler, leader of the Nazi Party, the persecution and segregation of Jews was implemented in stages. After the Nazi Party achieved power in Germany in 1933, its state-sponsored racism led to anti-Jewish legislation, economic boycotts, and the violence of the Kristallnacht, that is, the Night of Broken Glass pogroms, all of which aimed to systematically isolate Jews from society and drive them out of the country. At the Wannsee Conference in Berlin in January 1942, the SS and representatives of German government ministries estimated that the final solution, that is, the Nazi plan to kill the Jews of Europe, would involve 11 million European Jews, including those from non-occupied countries such as Ireland, Sweden, Turkey, and Great Britain. The Germans attempted to disguise their intentions, referring to deportations as resettlement to the east. The victims were told they were to be taken to labor camps, but in reality, from 1942 onward, deportation for most Jews meant transit to killing centers and then death. The Nazi leaders envisioned killing 11 million Jews as part of the final solution. They succeeded in murdering 6 million. This image is of deportation of Jewish children from the Lodz ghetto in German-occupied Poland in September 1942. Jews from Germany and German-occupied Europe were deported by rail to the killing centers in occupied Poland, where they were killed mercilessly. In the final months of the war, SS guards moved camp inmates by train or on forced marches, often called the death marches, in an attempt to prevent the Allied liberation of large numbers of prisoners. As Allied forces moved across Europe in a series of offensives against Germany, they began to encounter and liberate concentration camp prisoners, as well as prisoners en route by forced march from one camp to another. The marches continued until May 7, 1945, the day the German armed forces surrendered unconditionally to the Allies. For the Western Allies, World War II officially ended in Europe on the next day, that is May 8, while Soviet forces announced their victory day on May 9, 1945. As Allied and Soviet troops moved across Europe against Nazi Germany, they encountered concentration camps, mass graves, and other sites of Nazi crimes. The unspeakable conditions that the liberators confronted in the Nazi camps shed light on the full scope of Nazi horrors. In the aftermath of the Holocaust, more than 250,000 survivors found shelter in displaced persons camps run by the Allied powers and the United Nations Refugee and Rehabilitation Administration in Germany, Austria, and Italy. Between 1948 and 1951, 11,36,000 Jewish displaced persons immigrated to Israel, while others resettled in the United States and other nations outside Europe. Other Jewish displaced persons emigrated to the United States and other nations. The last camp for Jewish displaced persons closed in 1957. The Soviets liberated Auschwitz, the largest killing center and concentration camp, in January 1945. The Nazis had forced the majority of Auschwitz prisoners to march westward on the death marches. Soviet soldiers found over 6,000 emaciated prisoners alive when they entered the camp. There was abundant evidence of mass murder in Auschwitz. The retreating Germans had destroyed most of the warehouses in the camp, but in the remaining ones, the Soviets found personal belongings of the victims. They discovered, for example, hundreds of thousands of men's suits, more than 8 lakh women's outfits, and more than 14,000 pounds of human hair. Liberators confronted unspeakable conditions in the Nazi camps, where piles of corpses lay unburied. Only after the liberation of these camps was the full scope of Nazi horrors exposed to the world. The small percentage of inmates who survived resembled skeletons because of the demands of forced labor and the lack of food, compounded by months and years of maltreatment. Many were so weak that they could hardly move. Disease remained an ever-present danger, and many of the camps had to be burnt down to prevent the spread of epidemics. Survivors of the camps faced a long and difficult road to recovery. These are the references, and I'm sure you will take them up for your further investigation on the topic of the Holocaust.